Welcome back, Spare Parts Army. North Korea has announced that their newest submarine is now fully operational and ready for battle, with Kim Jong-un claiming that his next-generation tactical nuclear attack submarine could stealthily sneak up on his enemies and nuke them with ballistic missiles launched from hundreds of miles away. But is this new submarine really something to be worried about? Or is it in the same category as filming troops doing shirtless karate for propaganda purposes? Has North Korea's recent partnership with Russia given them advances in submarine technology needed to pull this off? I'm your average infantryman, Chris Cappy. Hit the like and subscribe button and let's find out. The new submarine has been assigned to the North Korean fleet that patrols the waters between the Korean Peninsula and Japan. At its launch ceremony, Kim Jong-un said that it would be their main underwater offensive means of their naval force. It's no secret North Korea has been expanding its nuclear arsenal in recent years. However, everything we've seen up until now has been land-based missiles. You got your silos or mobile truck carriers. The development of a sea-based nuclear capability would be a brand new one for North Korea. So North Korea has long had submarines for the purposes of espionage and infiltration inside neighboring South Korea. So to see them in this new role of ballistic missile submarine hitting targets thousands of kilometers away would be surprising. One of the things you guys always tell me in the comments section is that you appreciate how I try my best to stay unbiased with my reporting. And one of the ways I'm able to do that is thanks to my team's subscription to Ground News. Ground News is a website and an app that gathers news from all over the world and puts it in one place. It then gives me a clear way to navigate how every story is being told from different perspectives. For instance, I just covered how the Assad regime has collapsed in Syria, and there was a ton of information to sort through. But thanks to Ground News, I'm able to see that half of the 1,000 news outlets reporting on the story did so with even reporting across the political spectrum. But it helps sort by political bias, location, even government affiliation. It lets me choose stories with high factuality. But my favorite part is their interactive map feature that lets me explore news from all over the world. We're offering 50% off their Vantage plan at ground.news/task. This is the biggest discount they've ever offered, exclusive to you, Task and Purpose viewers, so I really recommend you give Ground News a shot by clicking the link in the description or the pinned comment below. According to the nonprofit NTI, the Nuclear Threat Initiative, which is a nonpartisan organization that's focused on reducing nuclear threats, they reported how North Korea's fleet of subs have been involved in a couple of bizarre, high-profile incidents over the years. In 1996, one of their submarines ran aground in South Korea, which led to all of their crew being chased around South Korea for nearly 2 months in a giant manhunt as they tried to make it back over the DMZ, over the border into North Korea. They were all either KIA or they chose to self-delete, except for one who was captured alive. Then, in 1998, one of their submarines got caught in a fishing net in South Korean waters. They were then towed back to port for interrogation, but on the way back, all the North Korean submarine crew chose to drink the self-deletion Kool-Aid instead of be captured alive. You might not know this, but then in 2010, a South Korean naval ship was sunk. They claimed that it was an attack torpedo from a North Korean sub. However, North Korea denied that and said, "Nuh-uh, wasn't me." So to hear that North Korea might have developed a long-range, next-generation modern submarine that could fire ballistic missiles would be surprising if true, because it'd be so different from what they've done in the past few decades. It would represent a significant shift. They would have come a long way in a relatively short period of time. North Korea technically on paper has one of the world's largest submarine fleets. Their navy has a fleet of 83 according to intelligence reports. But when we look closer at that fleet, we can see 40 of those subs are one of the smaller ones for coastal defense, special infiltration and reconnaissance missions. A 18,000-ton strategic nuclear sub isn't going to get caught in a fishing net. What North Korea wants is a submarine-launched ballistic missile that can hit anywhere in the globe, like how the United States has. They want a strategic force. Evidence of this comes from when Kim Jong-un himself said at the ceremony for the unveiling of this submarine, quote, "Achieving a rapid development of our naval forces is a priority that cannot be delayed, given the enemy's recent aggressive moves and military acts," end quote. If they had a fully operational one of these nuclear subs, it would give them an additional nuclear launch option, which means that they would have to worry less about their land-based nukes getting destroyed. I don't think that it's wise to underestimate your enemy, but there are some suspect things about this submarine that I simply can't ignore. The sub is the first of its type for them, known as the Simpo C class, aka Gorog class, aka Pongdae class. Well, it turns out upon closer inspection, the ship is actually just a modified Romeo class submarine rather than a new design. North Korea obtained a little over 20 old Romeo subs from China back in the 1970s and 80s, and they've just been making incremental upgrades to them over the years. I don't care what you pay me and how many belly rubs you give me, I am not floating around in an old Soviet submarine that was already outdated before they even got them. Despite having the word nuclear and attack in the name, the submarine is neither nuclear, meaning nuclear powered, or attack, meaning it's meant to go toe-to-toe with other submarines. Instead, this sub is a diesel-electric powered submarine. Originally, the Romeo class was equipped with a twin 2.94 megawatt engine, which drove electric motors that propelled the boat forward. We have no way of knowing the specifics of the engines that were used by North Korea, whether or not they've been upgraded or duct taped together over the past 50 years, but the body of the submarine and what we know from previous models indicates that it's still a non-nuclear powered craft. Diesel-powered subs, as opposed to your newer nuclear-powered ones, have obvious drawbacks that can't stay submerged for nearly as long, for instance. Generally, Romeo-class submarines are able to stay underwater for anywhere between 5 to 10 days, depending on how much of their battery gets used. Once they hit their limit, though, they have to resurface and turn on those diesel-electric generators, which then recharge the batteries before they can go back under again. This process takes up to 8 hours, which is way longer than you want to be above the waves if the entire point of your boat is to be completely hidden. So how does this submarine fall in line with those kinds of design philosophies? From the limited footage available on the boat, we know that it has 10 launch tubes capable of carrying either conventional ballistic missiles or nuclear SLBMs. The decision to call it a tactical nuclear attack submarine could indicate that its intended role is to launch smaller short-range missiles that are harder to intercept, rather than larger ones that could reach the continental United States. Or it could be that it just sounds cool. That's equally likely. Instead, it's expected that this boat will likely remain regional, threatening targets in South Korea or Japan. Original Romeo-class submarines had a range of about 9,000 miles. However, that's not really far enough to reach the American coastline and come back unless the crew is super down for a one-way trip only. Additionally, the massive increase in size and weight will inevitably reduce the range and speed that the aging diesel engines are able to propel the thing. Most of the added weight, from what we can see, comes from the submarine's sail, which is the larger portion protruding from the top. Off the 10 launch tubes, 6 are smaller for conventional cruise missiles, and 4 match the size needed to launch a nuclear weapon from. While North Korea has conducted extensive tests of both size missiles, what it hasn't managed to show the world is if it's capable of making a nuclear warhead small enough for the new submarine. The DPRK has produced photographs of what they claim to be the kind of warheads you see launched from a submarine, but there has been no actual proof of any of them actually working. Also, Kim, buddy, I would not touch that if I were you. Even though North Korea only officially revealed the hero Kim in September of 2023, it's been on the United States radar, or rather sonar, for a while now. Back in August of 2016, a KN-11 SLBM, or Submarine Launched Ballistic Missile, was fired into the Sea of Japan. This was done while the United States and South Korea were conducting their massive annual military exercises. The launch occurred right off the coast of Simpo and traveled 300 miles before impacting the ocean. There's no definitive proof that the missile was launched from a sub, and it's more likely that it was fired from a submerged testbed or just a prototype portion of the sub. But it's confirmed that North Korea was working towards an SLBM fleet. So while they're working on a new submarine, they're at the same time working on missiles that they can launch from it. The Pukgongsong 5 type is thought to be able to fly 600 kilometers in distance, but it's believed that when they test fired it, the launch caused damage to the submarine, forcing it to be towed back to pier. Be like if every time you fired your artillery cannon or gun, it blew up in your face. According to the NTI, North Korea's submarine missile program has actually moved along a lot faster than we would have thought. Their first test was in 2014, and it only took them 20 months later to successfully fire a missile from an underwater platform. It's very impressive that they were able to do it that quickly. It's believed that most of the technological advances that North Korea has had recently comes from their efforts to buy or spy from Chinese military advances next door to them. 3 years later, in 2019, satellite imagery of modified Romeo-class submarines were spotted at the Simpo South Shipyard. The Simpo South Shipyard, where the whole event took place, is North Korea's primary submarine hub, and it's where the Hero Kim was manufactured, along with the Sang-O class submarine, and where the Romeo class boats were maintained. The actual construction of the Simpo C-class was done at the southern end of the facility off the peninsula, and just north of that is the static testing launch point, where the launch tubes for the SLBMs were tested. And if we keep going north, inside of a secure boat basin off the dock, we have a submarine. Now, I'm neither a geospatial analyst nor a submarine expert, even if I did watch Hunt for Red October like 20 times, so I won't make the claim that this is the actual Hero Kim sub, but this imagery is just 1 month after the unveiling, and it's the exact location that previous imagery showed a hidden submarine just months prior. I'll let you be the judge, mostly because I don't want to get lit up in the comments. Regardless, the Hero Kim is touted as being able to conduct both preemptive and retaliatory strikes, and is allegedly just the first of many aging submarines to be upgraded to similar capabilities. North Korea's government refers to this process as a low-cost ultra-modernization strategy. This is pretty standard for DPRK practices across the board, as the majority of the military equipment, especially tanks and boats, are Frankenstein mixtures of homemade parts and foreign components slapped together on old vehicles. The size of the missile silo lines up with North Korea's missile developments over the past 4 years. The Pukguksong 3, 4, and 5 missiles, when first revealed, were noted to not be able to fit into any of the missile boats that they had at the time. The same goes for the still unnamed SLBM that was first revealed during a parade in April of 2022. These in particular, given the size, are likely MIRV warheads or multiple independently targeted reentry vehicles, which is fancy defense talk for one missile that has more than one nuke inside of it. These MIRVs were tested in June of 2024, but the actual deployment of the multiple warhead function was not seen. Cool paint job on them though, big fan of the checkered pattern myself. Pukguksong missiles have ranges of anywhere between 1,200 to 1,860 miles and can carry either conventional explosives or nuclear warheads, while the MIRV would be exclusively used for nuking targets. Other than the additional missile silos, the modifications to take the Hero Kim from Romeo class to Simpo C class are minimal. Small changes like the relocation of the diving planes to the upper sail of the ship will help provide directional stability to account for the increased mass. The majority of the changes are estimated to be internal ones though, which would lead to a smaller crew manning the submarine. It was quickly called out by the South Korean Joint Chiefs of Staff that the submarine was assessed to be not in a form to operate normally, and that joint intelligence between the United States and South Korea would be looking into signs that they are attempting to deceive or exaggerate this. Most of this reasoning behind this decision was that the submarine was simply too old to effectively operate with its intended purpose, if it operated at all. But I want to play devil's advocate here for a second. Let's assume the Hero Kim works perfectly. All missiles are operational, and that they really do have nuclear warheads capable of being launched and atomizing a few cities here and there. How much of a threat is this thing really? The first thing to consider is that there's only one of them, which means that North Korea would be extremely conservative in not wasting their one ballistic missile sub. But this is easier said than done. And most powers that have ballistic missile submarines, they need to have at least 3 so that you can rotate one being worked on, one having just been finished and being refitted, and then one out to sea at least. Now, one of the downsides of a diesel boat versus nuclear powered is that they're incredibly loud, making them significantly easier to detect using any kind of sonar or other audio detection. Next is that it's slow compared to modern day counterparts. American attack submarines, the boats that would be tested with finding and destroying the Hero Kim, are estimated to top out about 43 miles per hour. North Korean Romeo-class subs top out at about 15, meaning this new, larger, and heavier one will be even slower. Yes, I know I didn't use knots as a unit of measurement because I don't know what those are. Some naval experts expect that in order to save weight and simplify operation, the Hero Kim will not have a torpedo missile for self-defense, meaning if it's caught, the captain had better have paid attention in Evasive Maneuvers class. It also doesn't help its case that the United States, South Korea, and Japan have been conducting regular anti-submarine exercises specifically to counter North Korean subs. All of this considered, adding in that it would also have to be regularly come up for air to recharge its batteries for the length of the entire business day, the Hero Kim would only be able to get one salvo off, if any, before every ship was bearing down on it. In fact, we've actually recreated a bird's eye view digital recreation of what it would look like once the Hero Kim was discovered by foreign attack submarines. They didn't approve my budget request for an underwater shot. So even if the worst case scenario, this submarine is able to get one lucky shot off, does it mean it's not something to worry about? Not necessarily. Once North Korea is able to prove that the missiles fired from the subs do carry legitimate nuclear threat, they will have successfully completed a second leg of the nuclear triad, the first being their land-based ballistic missiles, and their subs the second. The third to complete for the nuclear triad is the capable stealth bombers, but they're quite a ways from gaining that ability anytime soon, most experts believe. In short, the creation of the Hero Kim, if it's ultimately successful, would mean that South Korea and the United States would lose the ability to ensure total denial of nuclear capabilities from the North. Silos and mobile missile carriers are easy enough to find and intercept sometimes. Submarine-launched nukes carry a bit more weight to them. This is simply because we would have no way of really knowing where the launch point would be exactly, and to intercept them could be significantly harder. It also matters that the air defense network protecting South Korea is entirely focused to the north, and defense systems would need to be reoriented to cover the gaps that submarines could exploit. Subs are tricky things, and ultimately, that's where the real problem of this submarine comes from, in that resources will have to be diverted in order to find and destroy it. That means fewer ships supporting other operations, more aircraft diverted looking for it, and air defense batteries having to spread themselves out to try to intercept it. All of these things potentially open up windows of opportunity for other parts of the North Korean military to take advantage of. There are a few ways forward for Kim's latest endeavor into submarine-launched nukes, because satellite imagery since 2014 hasn't shown any sea trials of this new sub. It's still largely untested, and South Korean intelligence estimates that it might still be a year or so before it's out of the trial phase and into operational status. If testing goes well, it's expected that at least some, if not all, of the remainder of North Korea's Romeo-class subs will undergo the same upgrades. The development of upgrades themselves were a domestic project by the DPRK, but signs are pointing that Russia has helped Kim in developing missiles for it. In January of this year, North Korea conducted testing of cruise missiles to be used in the Hero Kim, and these occurred while Russia conducted freedom of navigation patrols near the coast of Japan. Putin and Kim have increased their talks regarding technology transfers and ammo supplies, and some analysts believe SLBM technology is on the forefront of Kim's bargaining for giving artillery shells to aid in Russia's war in Ukraine. Whether or not this is the first step towards a nuclear-armed North Korean Navy, or the lead up to a section on its Wikipedia page titled Accidental Sinking, is a bit up in the air. For now, though, we'll keep an eye on it and see what it can do. Big announcement, I'm now on Pepperbox TV, where I run a weekly combat analysis show, completely uncensored, so if you're interested in learning more about the war in Ukraine, different American tactics, cartel warfare, you can go over to Pepperbox TV and check it out. There's already 4